So now it's official. Gym's closed, everybody's freaking out, but here's the thing. I've got some weights, got protein, got my family, got my dogs. Even if they try to come get me, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! All right, so we're starting out with an at-home dumbbell workout for legs. Now, a lot of these movements can be done with body weight alone, but I'm gonna make a completely separate video for that because there's a lot of fun ways you can really stress the muscle when you don't have the luxury of weights through different angles, tempo, just a lot of things I wanna go over separately that you'll get even more out of. And I think the coolest part about this is I used to pride myself when I trained more people in person. The first time somebody would come in, I'd just take a couple of dumbbells and I would just destroy them. So either they'd come back and they really liked that kind of intensity of training, or they die. So we're starting out with one of my favorite exercises, the static lunge. Now, if you don't have dumbbells like this, you just have regular 10 pounds, 15, it's fine. Most people can't do any weight whatsoever, so you should be good. And the cool thing about this is it makes you realize that just a little bit of movement goes a long way. So the key with this exercise, and any one we do for legs today, is finding that effective range. So with this one, if you want to hit more glute, you're gonna go all the way down and then halfway up and put pressure on that hip the entire time. Now, if you want to drive into your quad and really get that quad to light up, you're going to lean a little forward and come up about 3/4 of the way. One quick note to make sure you're getting the most out of it, whether you're doing the quad or glute-based version, make sure you put all that pressure on the front leg. The entire time you should feel like you're trying to lift that back leg up because you're putting so much pressure on that front leg. All right, so because my quad's already lit up, I'm gonna lean into it and light them up even more. So we're gonna do a dumbbell version of the front squat. And the nice part about these is you don't run into as many flexibility issues. And also you can really check your form because if you can go down, your back's nice and straight and you can touch those elbows to knees, you're usually pretty good. Now the biggest thing on these is make sure those quads stay engaged the entire time. So that means coming 3/4 of the way up and then not resting at the top. So you come up, you stay flexed the entire time, and make sure to get even more out of it, you're driving through those heels. Now don't think just because you're at home you're gonna be able to skip glutes, because the last thing you wanna do is walk out of your quarantine in 3 weeks and have an old man ass. I guarantee you that's probably what Corona goes after. Sees an old man ass, you're done. So I'm gonna give you two options. The first is a traditional style sumo where you stay nice and tall and your goal is to go as low as you possibly can. Those hips will allow you to go and then halfway up because you wanna keep those glutes engaged, but you don't wanna jump into those quads. Now the second one's actually my preference, but it depends if you've been consistently hitting that lower back or not because it's gonna be strong enough to hold the weight and not completely take over the movement. So instead of that straight up and down movement, now what you're gonna do is go halfway down and hinge over top of the hips. So the knees don't bend, they don't change position. Everything happens at those hips. So you flex over top of them and up. So I think stiff legs done correctly are an incredibly underrated exercise. But since we're at home, we can't really use that entire posterior chain, so we have to find a way to make those hamstrings work harder than they normally would. So the trick is instead of pulling straight up or even back a little bit, you're actually gonna let yourself drift forward, almost fall a little bit forward as you're contracting up. What that's gonna do is put more pressure on those hamstrings to not only pull the weight up, but actually keep you standing up straight. And as you pull up, you actually put more pressure on those toes and contract those hamstrings even harder. There's a couple things you're gonna notice there. One, always 3/4 of the way up. I'm not gonna take any rest out of that movement. It's gonna stay in the hamstrings the entire time, even during the stretch. The second thing you'll notice looks a little bit odd, but when I explain why it'll make sense, I actually bow my back a little bit because at the very worst, I wanted to jump in those glutes. If I take the opportunity for my back to jump out of it completely away by actually disengaging it and stopping the movement before it can even jump into my back, then it's golden. At the very worst, it's a glute exercise too, but at the best, it's completely hamstring. So the last one's a classic, reverse lunges. Now, I'm in this to build muscle. I'm not trying to do this for plyometrics or just, to burn myself out. I want to build muscle. So I'm going to stick to one side the entire time, do 15 reps, and then switch. And specifically on these ones, I'm going to put all that pressure on that front leg again. Try to barely touch that back leg. If you want to, you can throw a towel underneath there and just slide it back. That's even better. And really just keep that pressure driving through that front leg. So as always, like, subscribe to the notification bell. I'm gonna get a ton of these videos out. So make sure you leave a comment the video you want me to do next. I got a lot lined up, but I can add to that list. Get after, get growing. And in the spirit of that intro and kind of a fuck you to the coronavirus,